All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Wednesday, October 9th, and it is OU Sucks Week right here on All In Horns, your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. I'm Tanner Carlson along with Jake Jimerson. These episodes come out 5 days a week, Tuesday through Friday. They come and drop at noon, and then on Saturday, we let the football dictate our schedule. We give our immediate reaction to the Texas Longhorn game as soon as the game is over, and you will hear it right here after the Red River rivalry, as the number 1 Texas Longhorns will take on the number 19 Oklahoma Sooners in Dallas, Texas, at the State Fair in the Cotton Bowl. Jake, how are you doing?
Doing great, ready for the game, and I'm looking at the clock. It's October 9th, and Oklahoma still sucks.
Oklahoma still sucks, baby, and they will suck all week long. They sucked all last week, too, and they suck until the end of time. Jake, we are going to dive in. We're going to have a very good episode for everybody. I really like what we've got planned here for today. I want everybody to stick around. We're going to give our keys to victory for the Texas defense. We each have 3 keys to victory for the offense and the defense, and Jake and I are going to go through that. And then once we finish talking about that, and going very detailed, specifically talking about schemes, talking about what OU likes to do, both offense, defensively, and how Texas is going to counter that. We're going to take a look at Texas's path through the SEC for the remaining schedule. Now, yes, we're not supposed to look past OU, but that is a player job, not a fan job. And we are fans. We are not players. We are not associated with the team other than giving them our full support each and every single day. But yes, if a player or coach even mentions or sniffs or thinks about Georgia or Vandy or the bye week for the following season, or even A&M at the end of the year, shame on them. But for us, for the purpose of this show, I think we can do that. So, Jake, let's go ahead and get into our defensive keys to the game. And I want to start off. I'll go ahead and take the lead on this one, Jake, and then I'll let you go in and give yours. But my 3 defensive keys to the game, I'm going to share them. I'm going to give a quick synopsis on them. I want you to share yours, and then we'll have a conversation following those. But my first key to victory for the Texas defense is you're going to have to spy Hawkins. You got to spy Michael Hawkins. That's something that I think they should have learned. Coach PK and Steve Sarkisian should have learned from last year's game with Dylan Gabriel, not to allow a quarterback to extend the play and continue the drives using his legs. And that's really the number one thing that within his comfort zone that Michael Hawkins, I think, is going to rely on when things get tough. He's going to want to just tuck it and run. And I think if you have, say, a LaFau, I think LaFau, that would be a perfect position for him in this game. I think an Anthony Hill would do very good at spying Hawkins. And yes, I know you want to rush Hill. I know you want to put pressure on the quarterback in the pass rush, but I think just containing Hawkins and not really giving him any space to run is going to be very vital for success in this game for the Texas Longhorn defense. And then also force turnovers. I think if you force some turnovers, you get your offense in favorable field position. You can win that field position battle. We talked about it in yesterday's episode about how key special teams is going to be in this game and how key it typically always is in the Red River game. Force turnovers, force fumbles, interceptions, whatever that might be, get the ball back to your offense, because we saw what Mississippi State wanted to do to beat Texas. That was control the tempo. That was control the clock. That was stay on the field and keep the offense off the field for the Texas Longhorns. I think Oklahoma's going to have a very similar game plan, but if you force the turnover and you give it back to your offense, you give them more opportunity. And then get off the field on third and fourth down. Get off the field on the money downs, and whether that's force a punt on fourth down, or, you know, if Oklahoma is going to be ultra aggressive in this game, feeling like their backs are a little bit against the wall and they're going to want to go for it on fourth down, get off the field. Don't allow them to extend drives by getting into third and short, fourth and short yardage situations and then converting those. You got to stand tall, control that line of scrimmage. And I think a lot of that does come on the offense and defensive line and winning that matchup up front on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and jump into mine, but the number one thing is you just can't allow any kind of running game. You know, last year, obviously, you talked about it, but Dylan Gabriel, I don't think they were expecting them to run him as much. I think this year it's a little more obvious. And then also, I think they learned a lesson last year that this game is a throw the kitchen sink to win it. And especially when you're the underdog, you are going to unleash everything in your playbook. Texas is going to run things that they haven't put on film this year. OU is certainly going to run things that they haven't put on film this year and prepare some new things, especially with both teams having a bye week, which is a little bit of a wrinkle in this. I think you're going to see a lot of new looks on defense and not a lot of new looks on offense for both teams. And, you know, if you kind of look at who OU likes to run the ball with, obviously Hawkins has been a new wrinkle, but Taylor Tatum, their freshman running back, I believe he was a 5-star. He's supposed to be coming back. He's their only running back with more than 10 carries who's averaging more than 4 yards a carry, and he's at right about 6.4. Somewhat small sample size, but he's a guy that they're high on, and he is a very capable runner. And so I would look, if he's healthy, I think they're going to hand him the ball a lot and try to run it with him. And so you got to avoid allowing OU, like you mentioned, to go on longer drives. Secondly, generate a pass rush. You got a freshman QB. You cannot let him be comfortable. You cannot let him throw underneath stuff. Texas has been much better this year at not just giving away the short passes like they did last year. We have seen a schematic shift there, but at the same time, they haven't. This is without a doubt the best quarterback they've gone against to this point, which is not something I would be saying if Jackson Arnold was starting, but Hawkins has looked very good. He has not looked like a freshman. He has not thrown an interception yet. He has thrown some nice deep balls. They are still pretty low on the totem pole in explosive plays, which is going to kind of be into my third point, but I did kind of change my third point last second. So ticker's not gonna match it exactly. I did have stop explosive plays, so go ahead and throw it up there. But they do need to not allow explosives. That was ultimately what allowed them to edge the game away from Auburn, other than the pick six, obviously. But they had a big run play by Hawkins. I think it was a 49 or 50-yard touchdown run in the first quarter. Then they had a big long pass on their last offensive drive that was the biggest reason they were able to win, was basically 2 or 3 big offensive plays on the day. But I actually changed my last point because I was thinking about it more and more. They need to be adaptable, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I didn't think they adapted against Mississippi State. They came in with the plan of, we're going to have 5 in the box and we're just going to let you maybe be able to run for 3 or 4 yards a piece. I thought after the first drive that should have changed. They should have committed more to stopping the run. I think they have the cornerbacks to do that. And if OU comes out and their game plan is to have a light box, which I don't think they should do against a freshman quarterback, they need to adapt it if it's not working. You cannot allow OU to control the clock in this game, because if OU controls the clock, it will be a close game. And then on the offensive side, I kind of trust the adaptability of Sark. He is very good at in-game adjustments with the offensive game plan, but obviously it goes for the offense as well, because you're going to see a lot of different zone blitzes that Venables likes to bring. That is what he is known for as a defensive coordinator, confusing the quarterback and running creative blitzes. And they get after the passer. This is going to be the best pass rush they've played all year.
Yeah, and so, Jake, on the defensive side of the ball, I think you and I are of the impression of it basically revolves around shutting down Hawkins. And I think a big part of this game, aside from your scheme and the talent and the personnel you've got out there on the field, is you have a freshman quarterback starting in his first Red River game against an experienced defense, experienced linebackers, guys who have seen it all at this point in their career, and you should be able to match up against a guy, regardless if he's an improviser and he likes to extend the play and he doesn't necessarily follow the rule book when it comes to just what the play design is going to be, much like what a Jackson Arnold probably does. Michael Hawkins likes to improvise a little bit and takes what the defense gives you. Well, don't give him much. And I think you and I, where we see this game is if you can disrupt him and make him feel uncomfortable, the offense is going to kind of falter. The running game for Oklahoma has been abysmal, like They're not getting a push from the offensive line. They're not creating gaps. They're not creating holes for their runners to run through. And the running backs, quite frankly, aren't seeing anything that they can make a guy miss and, get a couple big gains. And so I think as long as Texas stays true to stopping the run and then controlling the quarterback, I think everything else falls into place for the defense.
Yeah, you want this freshman quarterback to be third and long. Keep them off bounce. Don't let them get ahead of the chains. It's very obvious. Every team wants to stay ahead of the chains. If you get Oklahoma in 3rd and 5+, that is not where they want to be. And then you just have to keep Hawkins under wrap. And this is going to be a good test for the edges because it's going to be about pass rush, but it's also going to be about contain. You cannot just be so set on sacking him that you just lose contain and let him get out, because he is dangerous with his legs. Now, luckily, this can't be a Caleb Williams situation where he comes in halfway through the game and you just kind of get shocked by a complete change of pace. I am glad that Oklahoma had to switch to him before, and now
we got full games.
Tape on
Yep.
They have
exactly.
one full game tape, and then they have about a full quarter, or basically, I think almost a full half against Tennessee. So you have a lot of tape that you can show. This offense has been better. Don't just look at the overall stats. They have been better under Hawkins. They also are still very flawed, even with Hawkins. And this defense, the Texas defense, should expect to dominate. Even if the offense doesn't play their best game, it shouldn't take much more than 21 to 24 points to win this game if the defense plays to their ability. This is not last year Oklahoma's offense. The defense is better this year, but the offense is significantly worse than last year under Dylan Gabriel. That was a pretty good offense last year.
I want to play a little game with you just real quick, Jake. Just name the answer. I don't need an explanation. Texas defensive line, Oklahoma offensive line. Who's better?
Texas defensive line.
Running backs or Texas linebackers?
Linebackers.
Quarterback or secondary?
Secondary.
Secondary or wide receivers?
Secondary.
Across the board. I mean, Texas, that's the point that I'm trying to make. Texas should, to your point, should dominate defensively. If this game is won or lost anywhere for the Texas Longhorns, if it's won, it's going to come on the defensive side of the ball. If they don't show up and Oklahoma all of a sudden has 28 pushing 30 points, that's when you're going to have me a little bit nervous, because I know Texas and under Sark's offense, Texas is kind of mainstay. They're average around that 30-point mark on offense. If Texas scores over 30 points, you feel pretty confident. You feel pretty good. Like that it's going to kind of happen regardless. And so it really depends on, is that defense going to hold an offense under 30 points? If you hold them under 30 points, you're probably liking Texas's chances very much so. And Oklahoma, I'm not even sure, aside from the Tulane game, that they've even scored over 30 points against an opponent that's not Tulane. I don't have their schedule up right now. Temple.
That doesn't even count. They might as well have played Mary Hardin Baylor.
they might as well have played Belton High School. Okay, so Jake, let's go ahead and switch gears to the other side of the ball. Again, we're going to do the exact same thing. I'll give my 3 offensive keys to the game. You'll give your 3 offensive keys to the game, and then we will discuss going in further into the show. So, Tanner's offensive keys to victory for the Texas Longhorns is keep Quinn upright. Don't allow that pressure to disrupt this game plan for Sark, because that can cause quite a bit of an issue. He's also coming back from his injury. This will be the first action that he has played against in live game action since UTSA, since his oblique injury. Keep him upright. And I know I've said it for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, Quinn just needs to get hit once or twice. He'll get back into the groove of things. Don't let him get hit. That's just kind of a figure of speech to get him going, to get his blood pumping. But seriously, keep him upright. If the pass protection for Texas continues to be what it has been really all season long, I don't feel like Texas is going to struggle to run the offensive game plan that they want to run against Oklahoma if the pass protection it continues on the trajectory that we've seen from them this entire season. Next, clean football, baby. No penalties, no turnovers. I think that was my biggest concern. Not even concern, just frustration would probably be a better word for it, during the Mississippi State game. It wasn't clean. Nothing about it. It seemed junky. It seemed, the only player that really seemed to be smooth and in a rhythm was Arch, and he was probably the only player that I would have given a pass if he didn't play smooth and was a little clunky out there. He was the only one that didn't play that way. The offensive line cannot afford pre-snap penalties. They cannot afford on third down getting a conversion and getting a holding penalty or getting an illegal man downfield. If we get the Miami refs on our side, hey, maybe we're in good shape. But we got to prevent penalties and turnovers. And lastly, exploit the secondary in space, Jake. I want to get these wide receivers in the open field. And I think we just match up in a much better athletically than Oklahoma does in the secondary. If we can get Isaiah Bond, if we can get a Matthew Golden and a Ryan Wingo into space down the field, and I'm not just, yes, sideline to sideline in the RPO game and screen game, I know that's coming. Intermediate passing game down the field, 10, 15 yards down the field into open space in the run. I think that is where a lot of the Texas wide receivers are going to find much more success than near the line of scrimmage. I think OU wants to play near the line of scrimmage. I think they want to press up on you. I think they want to be in your face. I think they want to kind of bait you into running those screen passes, those sideline to sideline passes that are quick releases. I think if you can give Quinn enough time to get the wide receivers down the field, I think that's where you're going to exploit the secondary for Oklahoma, and that's where you'll see the most success for this Texas wide receiver group.
Yeah, and for me, the first one, and I kind of hinted at this when I was talking about adaptability, but is do not let the OU zone blitzes confuse you. Venables is one of the best in the business at designing a creative defensive scheme that confuses quarterbacks and confuses coaches. Now, Sarkisian has been very good against this scheme, in his first years here at Texas, even though he doesn't have a winning record against OU right now. The offense has not really been the issue in those losses. The offense has put up a ton of yards, ton of points. Really, the only issue you could say is a slow start last year with a couple turnovers, which was partly because Quinn got a little confused at the start of the game. He adjusted, and he ended up, after that slow start, I think he finished 26 of 28, and he went on a tear. But when you throw 2 picks early, the damage is kind of already done. That already sets you back the whole game, which is exactly what happened last year. So you can't get confused, whether it be early or, as the game goes along. You got to be ready for what they're going to throw at you, and you got to be ready to adapt to some new looks you're probably going to see that you haven't seen on film yet. Because like we've mentioned, this is an empty the kitchen sink game. I think OU is going to be emptying the clip on defense. Anything that they have installed that they haven't run yet, which I'm sure there's quite a few things, they're going to have ready to go. And like we've mentioned also, the bye week has allowed for these teams to prepare probably specific plays, specific designs that they did not have even implemented until the bye week, and now have implemented and are ready to show on Saturday. Second, stay ahead of the chains. Simple. If you're off script and you're 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 against this Oklahoma defense, it is not going to go well. How did Auburn have really the most success any offense has had against Oklahoma? They stayed ahead of the chains, and they kept them off balance. They had enough of a running game, but it really came through being able to get the passing game. The Oklahoma secondary, they do have some studs back there, but the depth isn't as good. And I think Texas can really exploit them by putting out 4 or 5 receivers out there, using the tight end game, and really spreading the field, I think, is where Texas is going to have success. But that also comes to your point of the offensive line is going to have to hold up, because Michigan is still the best front they've played. But I think Oklahoma is the most dynamic pass rush that they will have played this year. And then lastly, they got to capitalize when they have chances to make big plays. And I know we've harped, and I'm a Jonte Cook fan. I think he's been really good, but that drop stands out against Mississippi State, because you're going to get some chances to get big plays in this game, and big plays matter more than ever in the Red River game because of the momentum swings that happen. If you have a guy wide open down the field, Quinn's got to make the pass. The catch has to be made. You can't have any penalties that take it off the board. When they get opportunities to bust a big play, whether it be a touchdown, whether it be a 40-yard gain that gets you in the field position, you got to take advantage of it. You got to get touchdowns on the board. The red zone offense also, kind of goes with big plays. Any touchdown is a big play. When they get in the red zone offense has to continue to be what it has been so far this year. Because last year, the red zone was a big talking point coming out of the Oklahoma game, but we knew the red zone offense wasn't right last year, even going into the Oklahoma game. That was one of the big red flags going into that game. And then it showed up big time being a red flag. You want to see that continue to be a positive like we've seen leading up to this game.
Yeah, Jake, and one thing that you and we did not really necessarily have as really any of our keys to the game, except for maybe your stay ahead of the chains, was really focusing on the run game. Jake, is that something that we think Texas's most success is going to be through the passing game with the wide receivers and getting down the field, just because of Oklahoma's run defense is just really good. Their linebackers really good. Their defensive line solid. Is that just the scheme that they run that maybe we're just kind of like, you know what, we don't need to necessarily rely on the running game. Now, if the running game is there, that can help open up the passing game a little bit more. But if Texas is going to have the majority of the success that we are hoping that they have, it's mostly going to fall on the shoulders and the arm of Quinn Ewers and the hands of the wide receivers.
Watch the Michigan game, copy and paste to a point. I mean, I don't think they're going to come out and just be running the ball early. I think that would be a recipe for a losing game plan on offense. I don't expect them to just come out and be getting 4 yards of pop right away. You got to get them off balance, and off balance doesn't mean a balance of rush and pass as far as the stat sheet is concerned, because as we've talked about plenty, the extension of the run game is these quick passes. And I do think you're going to see that because Oklahoma likes to run a zone defense primarily. Even if they press up, they still typically back up into zone. I think you're going to see them try to get some of those quick passes early, then get some shots over the top, use that intermediate passing game, and then go to the run game when they've hopefully gotten a lead, and then kind of go from there. You kind of adjust. If the run game's still not working, that's maybe when you try to get the screen game going. But if you have the defensive line not knowing what's going to happen, you're running them sideline to sideline. That's where I think Texas is going to have success early in this game, and then they can look to have a little bit more success running the ball. And I'd actually like to see Gibson have a really nice game, because I think that's the type of runner you're going to need in this game. Someone who's just going to put his head down and bowl through the defense. Because if you're too patient, you look at what OU's done this year. Tennessee's a really good running team. Tennessee, yes, they ran it 52 times in that game, but they did not have any success doing it in those 52 attempts. So I don't expect Texas to have a ton of success just on a standard run game type play.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. It's annoying that you can kind of read my mind. I was going to ask you, who are we? We're a week and a half removed from Jaden Blue's fumbling debacle against Mississippi State. Who's your running back one? Are you trusting Blue to take care of the primary, ball carrier? Is it Wisner that you want to lean more on? It sounds like you like Gibson, but I think for me, Gibson, I don't want him. If Gibson has the most amount of carries in this game, I don't necessarily know if that's what Texas wants. But as a change of pace back, as a guy who can kind of be that Energizer bunny, can kind of be the guy who provides a big run, whether that be a 10-yard run and he just runs over a defender and he gets some tough yardage. That's what we need Gibson to be doing. Who's your primary ball handler going into this game?
I'm going to go a 40-40-20 split between Blue, because I don't think you give up on Blue after that. He's still the most dynamic running back. And if anything, that game will work as a wake up. I don't think he's going to come into this game and just be fumbling again. And if he does, you pretty much have to sit him the rest of the year. Because at this point, he knows it's an issue, so you got to get it fixed. But I think you do a 40-40-20 type split. You Blue and Wisner obviously is the 240s, and then Gibson as your kind of change of pace 20% type back, maybe even lower to like 15%. But I think you can really split Blue and Wisner. I think they both have looked impressive at different times this year. Wisner obviously looked really good against Mississippi State. But I think by virtue, you have to use all your running backs because you really only have 3 left.
Mhm.
And so you can't just use one as a bell cow, especially in this game. But I think it works out well because they all three bring something different to the table.
And you're no longer at a point to where you're like, okay, well, we got to reserve this guy. We got to hold on to this guy. We can't limit this guy's touches because we need so-and-so to get healthy. No, you're at your point. You're in the meat of your schedule. This is the meat and potatoes of your schedule. You're going 100% at this point in time. Now, if a guy gets banged up, you're just going to have to deal with the banged up guy. Like there's no limiting touches, I don't think, anymore. I don't think there's any playing it careful with your running back crew just because you're limited in numbers there. This is Oklahoma. This is the number one game on your schedule every single year. You have to win this game. You lost last year. They ruined your perfect regular season. Your ride into victory in the Big 12. Now, luckily, you get a chance to redeem that now as they follow you into the SEC, does Oklahoma. But this is a game where you cannot just lay back and just say, you know what? We got a lot of weeks left. This is a 12-team playoff. It's okay. No. This is Alabama, Georgia. This game means something to these two programs. And like Michael Taft said, he don't forget, baby. And we don't want him to forget, And so this is something that the coaching staff knows it. Steve Sarkisian knows. The donors and the trust fund babies that donate to the program, they are looking at Steve Sarkisian and saying, look, man, we need you to start dominating Oklahoma like Oklahoma has dominated Texas over the last 10 years. We want that record for you. We need you to show that. And it starts now. He's a better coach than Venables. Again, let's play the game again. Quinn Ewers against the Oklahoma linebackers.
Quinn Ewers, but I do have a lot. It is not near as big of a
gap
as the defensive side of the ball because Oklahoma has some really good linebackers.
Quinn Ewers versus the secondary.
Quinn, bigger gap.
Wide receivers against the secondary.
A gap because of the depth for Texas.
Offensive line versus defensive line.
Wash.
Okay.
Because I don't think they win the running game, but I think they should be able to keep Quinn fairly protected.
And then the running backs versus the front seven.
Front seven.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. I have to agree. I mean, if I'm going to give Oklahoma anything, it's going to be their advantage against Texas against the run defensively.
Yeah. And that's why I think you're going to see a lot of passes to open up this game. And it shouldn't be why aren't they running the ball? That is what I expect the game plan to be. That has been their most successful game plan this season, regardless of who has been quarterback. That is how you're going to get this OU defense off balance and open up the run game. This is a pass-first team this year. It is different than the last couple of years, and it's because they're loaded at the quarterback room.
All right, Jake, well, let's go ahead. We did promise this to the people, and I do want to finish the show with a look ahead. Following the OU game, Georgia on the schedule has been deemed a night game. That kickoff is at 6:30 at DKR. You're going to have the drone show. You're going to have the fireworks show. You're going to have the smoke show. It's going to be a great time. 6:30 kickoff against number 5 Georgia, at least for the time being. It's number 1 versus number 5. Those rankings, I'm sure, will change in a couple of weeks following this game. And then you've got at Vanderbilt, a bye week, home against Florida, at Arkansas, home against Kentucky, and then at A&M in College Station Thanksgiving weekend. Looking at the schedule again in week 7, it's a way different look than you saw in week 1 against this stretch of teams. This, again, is the meat and potatoes of your schedule. There's no more, limited snap carries or anything like that, limited, playing time for anybody. If you can play, you can play. All teams that remain on Texas' schedule has beaten a ranked team with the exception of Florida. 4 of the 6 remaining teams have beaten a top 10 team, and that would be Vanderbilt beating Alabama, Arkansas beating number 4, Tennessee, Kentucky taking down Ole Miss a couple weeks ago, and then Texas A&M coming off of that Missouri win. Jake, this schedule, just what's going through your head whenever you look at the remaining schedule here in week 7 compared to what we saw in week 1?
Well, first off, there's no more discussion of trap games. These are just all tough games coming up. It started as like Kentucky might be a trap game. Not so much a trap game when they nearly beat Georgia and then beat Ole Miss. Arkansas at Arkansas, that's going to be a trap. Well, no, they just stormed the field, beating the other UT, the fake UT, and then obviously Vandy. You could kind of see that it was not necessarily a trap game. That this Vandy team is a different animal than they have been in a very long time, if not ever. And then obviously them beating Alabama just cements that in a game where it wasn't just because they got ahead early either. Alabama came back and Vandy kept fighting to win that. That was a very legit win by Vandy. And then obviously Georgia in DKR we've talked about it, even with Georgia losing that game to Bama and maybe not looking as dominant as everyone thought they would be. That's still going to be, in my opinion, the biggest game DKR has seen in our lifetimes, just because the Alabama game was big, sure, but Texas, we never thought they were going to win that game leading into it. During the game, we thought they might, but I don't think that was more of a let's see where the program is at. The LSU game with, Tom Herman, it was Tom Herman coach team. It's not the same as now. This is a year where you expect Texas to be in the playoff. You expect them to have a chance at winning a national title. And you got a Georgia coming in to your house. That is when you got to protect the home field advantage, protect the environment that DKR has come. I'm excited. We've been talking about it for weeks. We've been wanting to get to this point. It's a lot easier. We've talked more about Texas OU this week than we talked about any game or any of the other games combined other than Michigan. And so it's a whole different feel now. It feels like it's the start of the season for Texas, and every game the rest of the way, they're going to have to bring their A game to win out.
And looking at A&M's schedule, A&M could very easily win out. We mentioned it on yesterday's episode. Again, go check that out if you haven't already. But they've got LSU at home. They go on the road to South Carolina. They go on the road to Mississippi State. They go on the road to Auburn. And then they play Texas at home. They also have some cupcake FCS team and somewhere mixed in there along the way as well. But their two hardest ranked teams remaining on their schedule, which is a possible fraudulent LSU team, and then Texas. Game Thanksgiving weekend, Jake, that could be a top 5 matchup in College Station.
That could be a matchup to go to the SEC title game where the loser's out, the winner's in. It's not impossible.
Is it possible that it doesn't matter at that point in the season, and that is the SEC championship game?
Yeah, it could be that you're playing this game and then you're playing a week later. I mean, we're going to have to see. A&M could A&M. I mean, they could certainly find a way to lose a couple of these games.
South Carolina's not a pushover. Auburn showed that they were very close to beating Oklahoma. LSU is LSU. Yeah. Hey, they could show up for a game, and A&M has A&M before, and they've fallen flat on games that they should win. And so, it's not out of the realm of possibility that doesn't play out, but the possibility, again, is still there.
Yeah, I don't think A&M will fall flat as far as performance-wise against Texas. They're going to bring their A game. Elko knows that is going to be the game that even if they lose, even if they somehow drop every game between now and Texas, if they beat Texas at the end of the year, that fan base will be happy with the season and consider it a win.
That's a 10-year, $70 million extension there for Elko. So,
if they beat that, he's going to get double the Jimbo deal.
Well, that is it for Wednesday's episode. Jake, these episodes come out Tuesday through Friday at noon, and then following the Texas game on Saturday. Whenever Texas plays, we will give you our immediate reaction following the game. We look forward to Red River Rivalry weekend. Jake, it's going to be a great college football weekend, one of the greatest of all time. Never miss out on college football, especially whenever it's Texas OU week. Jake, for everybody at home, again, we have a very good interview coming up tomorrow. Trey Elling, who is a Texas podcaster and Texas blogger, he's going to be joining our show tomorrow. Trey Elling, again, a blogger and podcaster for the Texas Longhorns, will be joining our show to talk all things Texas OU, and we're excited to have him. So tune in. like, share, subscribe, spread the word. Again, on YouTube and where all podcasts can be listened to. This is your daily fix of all things Texas Longhorns right here on All In Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.